His daughters thought I was a gold digger until they discovered the truth about who was really paying the bills. Let me tell you how this whole mess unfolded because honestly, I'm still processing everything that happened. I'm 42 years old and I've been dating Tim for about 3 years now. He's 59, a widower who works in banking, and I'm a bartender. I know exactly what that looks like. Older, successful man, younger woman working in service industry. His daughters certainly thought they had me figured out from day one. But here's the thing, nobody knew, including Tim's daughters. I'm the one with money. I have a trust fund that's been taking care of me my whole life. And Tim? Well, Tim is completely broke. Let me back up and explain how Tim ended up in this situation because it's heartbreaking, and it's the reason I fell in love with this man in the first place. His late wife, Sarah, got cancer. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And Tim, being the devoted husband he was, did everything humanly possible to save her. I remember the night he first told me about it. We were sitting on my back porch, and he had this look in his eyes, like he was reliving every painful moment. He told me how he maxed out 6 credit cards, took out a second mortgage on their house, cashed out his entire retirement fund, everything and anything to get Sarah the treatment she needed. But it wasn't just about keeping her alive, he said. It was about keeping her alive long enough to see both their daughters get married. And she did. She walked both those girls down the aisle before she passed away. Can you imagine the love it takes to bankrupt yourself just to give your family those precious moments? So when I met Tim 2 years after Sarah's death, he was drowning in debt. The house was underwater. He was facing foreclosure and bankruptcy, and he was too proud to tell his daughters just how bad things had gotten. They lived 6 hours away, so they had no idea what their father was going through. Now, here's where the Christmas drama begins. The first year we were together, Tim wanted me to come with him to visit his daughters for Christmas. I was nervous, obviously. Meeting the kids is always complicated. But meeting adult children who lost their mother, that's a whole different level of terrifying. I'll never forget walking into that house. The moment I stepped through the door, I could feel the coldness, not the weather, the hostility. They looked at me like I was some kind of predator who had swooped in to take advantage of their grieving father. They completely ignored me. When Tim tried to include me in conversations, they would literally drag him away to talk privately. Their husbands seemed nice enough and tried to make small talk with me a few times, but the daughters would immediately talk over me, cutting off any attempt at normal interaction. I spent most of that Christmas feeling like an unwelcome stranger in someone else's home. It was humiliating, honestly. I kept thinking, I'm 40 years old. Why am I letting these women make me feel like a teenager? After we got home, Tim was mortified. He called his daughters and chastised them for their behavior. They apologized. To him, not to me, mind you, and explained that seeing their father with a woman who wasn't their mother was just too painful. They promised to do better. I understood grief. I really did. So when Christmas rolled around the second year, I decided to give them another chance. Maybe they just needed time to process their emotions and get used to the idea of their father moving on. Boy, was I wrong. The second Christmas was somehow even worse than the first. Same cold treatment, same deliberate exclusion, same talking over me whenever I tried to participate in conversations. It was like they hadn't learned anything from the previous year. I remember sitting at their dinner table, trying to contribute to a conversation about local restaurants, and one of the daughters just started talking louder and louder until I finally gave up and went quiet. The look of satisfaction on her face when I stopped talking, I'll never forget that. Tim apologized again afterward, but I could see the strain this was putting on him. He was caught between wanting to defend me and not wanting to damage his relationship with his daughters. It was an impossible position for him to be in. So this year, when Christmas was approaching, I made a decision. I told Tim, "I'm not doing this again. You should absolutely go see your daughters for Christmas. I would never ask you not to spend the holidays with your family, but I'm staying home." Tim wasn't thrilled with this plan, and I understood why. You see, driving 6 hours is really hard on his back. We usually share the driving responsibilities, so me not going meant he'd have to make that long drive alone, which would be pretty uncomfortable for him. But then I had an idea. My brother owns a car dealership, and I thought, why not lease Tim a really comfortable car for these trips? His 2010 Honda was falling apart anyway, and I could afford to get him something nice that would make the drive easier on his back. I surprised him with this beautiful, luxurious SUV, leather seats, great lumbar support, all the bells and whistles. Tim was absolutely thrilled. He called his daughters right away, super excited to tell them that he'd be able to visit them more often now that he had a comfortable car to drive. That phone call changed everything. Instead of being happy for their father, his daughters exploded. They accused him of spending their mother's money on a bullshit house and car to impress some bimbo bartender. They were furious that he hadn't offered them any money for their weddings, but was apparently spending thousands on impressing his new girlfriend. I could hear them yelling through the phone from across the room. The words they used about me, well, let's just say bimbo bartender was the nicest thing they called me. But here's where it gets interesting. In the middle of this screaming match, the truth started coming out. Tim's daughters had been operating under some major assumptions about their father's financial situation, and every single one of those assumptions was completely wrong. They thought there had been a life insurance policy. There wasn't. Sarah's cancer treatments had eaten up everything they had and more. They had no idea about the credit card debt, all 6 maxed-out cards. They didn't know about the second mortgage or that the house was underwater. They certainly didn't know that Tim had been facing foreclosure and bankruptcy before he moved in with me. They had no idea that their father was completely broke. And here's the kicker. They didn't realize it was my house he was living in. They thought he had bought some fancy new place to impress me. In reality, Tim pays exactly one bill in my house, the water bill, and only because the man takes ridiculously long showers. We split groceries, but everything else, that's all me. The car? Also mine. The comfortable lifestyle they assumed their father was suddenly living? All funded by my trust fund, not their mother's non-existent life insurance policy. I watched Tim's face during this phone call, and I could see years of shame and pride crumbling away. He had been carrying this burden alone, too embarrassed to tell his daughters how bad things had gotten, and they had been resenting him for what they thought was selfish spending. After the call ended, Tim just sat there in stunned silence. I think he realized for the first time how completely his daughters had misjudged both him and me. Within a few days, everything changed. Suddenly, Tim's daughters wanted my phone number. They were sorry I had felt lonely during those Christmas visits. They wanted to come visit us next year, conveniently in the summer since I live near a beach. The 180 was so dramatic, it was almost comical. These women who had treated me like garbage for 2 years were now suddenly interested in getting to know me better. What a coincidence that their change of heart happened right after they discovered I was the one with money. Tim thought this was wonderful news. He said they would have warmed up to me eventually, but knowing how generous I was being with their father had just made them warm up quicker. He wanted me to give them my number and start fresh. But I told him absolutely not. Look, I understand that they were protecting their father from what they thought was a gold digger. I can even understand the grief and pain of seeing him with someone who wasn't their mother. But here's what I can't get past. If they had bothered to have even one real conversation with me over the past 2 years, they would have figured out pretty quickly that I wasn't after their father's money. I'm not shy about my financial situation. I've never hidden the fact that I'm incredibly fortunate to have inherited wealth that I did absolutely nothing to earn. The only thing I've ever contributed to my blessed financial state, as I like to joke, is not developing a crippling cocaine addiction like my cousin Danny did. If they had talked to me for even 2 seconds like a human being, instead of treating me like a threat, they would have understood who I really was. But they chose to make assumptions instead, and they chose to be cruel based on those assumptions. Tim thinks I'm being too unforgiving. He says I should give them another chance now that they know the truth. But I maintain that I don't care about their change of heart now that they know I have money. They had their chance to not be catty, judgmental people, and they blew it. I'm happy to be polite if they come to visit Tim. I won't be rude or make things awkward for him, but we're not going to be friends. We're not going to have some heartwarming reconciliation where we laugh about the misunderstanding from the past. Because here's the thing. Their behavior wasn't about misunderstanding my financial situation. It was about their character. It was about how they chose to treat someone they thought was beneath them socially and economically. It was about their willingness to be cruel to someone who made their father happy, just because they had decided I wasn't good enough. And now that they know I'm not the gold digger they assumed I was, now that they know I'm actually the one supporting their father and helping him rebuild his life after years of financial devastation, suddenly I'm worth getting to know. I've seen this movie before, and I don't like how it ends. I don't want relationships that are conditional on my bank account. I don't want people in my life who were cruel to me when they thought I was poor, but kind to me when they discovered I was rich. Tim is a good man who was dealt some terrible cards. He sacrificed everything for the woman he loved, and he's still paying the price for that sacrifice years later. He deserves daughters who support him and treat the people he cares about with basic human decency, regardless of their assumptions about social status or money. Maybe I am being unforgiving. Maybe I should give them the fresh start they're asking for. But I can't shake the feeling that their sudden interest in me isn't about recognizing that they misjudged my character. It's about recognizing that they misjudged my net worth. And honestly, that tells me everything I need to know about their character. So Tim's daughters can visit their father any time they want. They can enjoy the comfortable guest room in my house and the beautiful beach that's walking distance from my backyard. But they won't be getting my phone number, and they won't be getting a relationship with me built on the foundation of their newfound respect for my bank account. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt, and sometimes that's exactly how it should be.